At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our next event, the Aether Sprint Competition. Please welcome Major General Jeffrey King back to the stage.
No, Mike. Hey, long time no see. All right, so a little bit lighter of a topic here, and man, this is great. I mean, we just talked a whole lot about accelerating innovation, right, and finding pipelines to do that, and this is one of them. And I was super excited to be able to join the A4L team because now I finally get to work with Tesseract. You know, long-time listener, first-time caller, been hearing a lot about them, and now I get to really see firsthand what they do. And actually might get a little bit of vote on how they do it and maybe expanding that aperture and vectoring them in some ways they haven't been before to increase those pipelines and accelerate innovation even more until the things AFMC are doing come into pass, help you close those gaps quicker. This is the 4th season of Aether Sprint. General Hurry's vision is absolutely incredible, and the team is at full stride. Ma'am, what you have done, what you have created with this team, they're up on plane. And like General Miller has often talked about, like water skiing, right? When that boat gives you a tug and you drop down, once you get up on plane, boy, life is good. And I have the benefit of, I'm benefiting from her hard work in establishing this. And this team they're at full strength. They're throwing haymakers and working with all of you and everyone else. They've been out to the Pacific, they've been out to Europe, and now in their 4th season, they're working with fielded airmen across the Air Force to accelerate fantastic ideas into action. In Aether Sprint, the challenge is to find those good ideas that can be rapidly developed and with a little bit of funding, with a little bit of oomph, be fielded to scale, and then they applied across the enterprise, right? Exactly what we've been talking about in the entire 40 minutes prior. So we started with 50 great ideas, and I'd argue I don't think there was a bad idea in there. They were just at various level of maturity. The Tesseract team worked with these folks for over 6 months. We went from 50 down to 17 through sequential passes and reviews, down to 7 for the final round. We were supposed to choose 3. And we ended up selecting 4 because one was just a no-brainer. They didn't need money. They just needed a little extra air staff push to get over the edge. I think you're going to be thrilled with what you see, and we cannot wait to get these folks what they need to get these capabilities out into the field. One in particular, I think General Sanford was especially excited about and engaged with PEO Mobility to get it quickly written in as a requirement so that we can get it funded and expanded across Air Mobility Command. Again, the Tesseract team in A4L, nothing but high praise for them. They work closely to refine these and make these implementation ready, working down policy constraints, identifying funding channels, and connecting them with technical experts to get those little nuanced little things done to get them through the engineering hurdles and things needed. So before we recognize this year's finalists, let's take a moment to check in with the teams that presented on this stage last year. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us here today at Aether Sprint 2024. I'm Technical Sergeant Daniel Costi from Tesseract, the Logistics Office of Innovation at Headquarters Air Force. This presentation is an opportunity for all of us to celebrate the airmen in the field who have answered the call to innovate. Whether that be pushing to integrate a groundbreaking technology, making us a more lethal force, or somebody building something in their free time in their garage, just trying to make their section's workload a little bit lighter. Today we'll meet 4 teams who were selected as finalists for this year's competition. They will tell you their stories, share their projects. They spent a better part of a year developing and testing. We want to take a moment to acknowledge and share our appreciations for all of the teams who submitted for Aether Sprint this year. We received just about 50 submissions from all over the Air Force, ranging from all the MAGCOMs, all of which demonstrated a growing culture of innovation, thinking our logisticians and maintainers in the field. While we can't have all 50 teams here on stage, we value their contributions to our logistic mission sets, and our team at Tesseract is committed to continuing to work with each and every team. The work doesn't stop here. We continue everything. Something that makes Aether Sprint a little bit different from the other innovation competitions you might see out in the Air Force is each year we kick off Aether Sprint with a series of challenge questions. We carefully craft these to represent critical capability gaps or needed improvements for a future fight. We worked with General Miller and, at the time, General Hurry, along with the A4L staff to ensure that we are challenging the field to solve problems that make an impact. The questions that you see on the screen here cover topics such as sortie generation timelines, dual-use support equipment, supply chain optimization, AI, robotics, and autonomous systems, and the storage and sustainment of pre-positioned equipment. As a C-17 crew chief myself, having turned wrenches on the line just over a year ago, let me tell you, it's an honor to be in front of you today, and it's an honor to be on this team helping these airmen get their projects across the finish line. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first team, coming all the way from Cannon Air Force Base, Project Claws.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad it's a small crowd, because I thought I was going to have to be nervous. I'm Technical Sergeant Joshua Rogers out of Cannon Air Force Base.
I'm Master Sergeant Khalil Bashir out of Osan Air Base, Korea.
And I'm Staff Sergeant Brett Doyle from Cannon Air Force Base.
In attendance today also, but not here up on stage with us, is Chief Master Sergeant Travis Cheney, our current Wing Weapons Manager at Cannon Air Force Base. So for the Aether Sprint competition, we were given the challenge question, how might we minimize combat sortie generation timelines to meet pacing threat challenges? Our team's journey to this answer started approximately about 2 years ago, when a similar question was posed to Sergeant Bashir while he was working at weapons standardization at Cannon. During the upcoming slides, we're going to give you some detailed information about our project clause that we've been working on. You're also going to get a chance to see a video where a loading operation is going to take place twice, the same time over, simultaneously side by side. On one side, you get to see the legacy loading operation, the way that we've been loading on AC-130s on external wings for years now, since we've been able to. On the other side, you get to see our prototype clause in action going right alongside with it. With that information and the video in mind, I encourage you all to envision in your head an operation such as this: a C-130, expended munitions, flying over a Pacific island chain, and it's needing to land in an austere location. A location that's going to be hard to get manpower in and out of, get equipment in and out of, and we don't have a lot of time. So with that in your mind, that scenario and this video and this presentation, we ask you to ask yourselves, which one of these loading operations seems like it's better suited for the future fights of the Air Force? Over the past 2 years of working on this, me personally, I think the answer is claws.
Thank you. So in July of 2022, I was the loading standardization team chief over at Cannon Air Force Base. Chief Marquez, our wing weapons manager at the time, came to me as I was standing on the C-130 load pad, and he asked me a question. How do you think we can get rid of, or minimize at least, our loading equipment for the AC-130 while still keeping our same loading capabilities? To solve this issue, we looked at current Navy loading equipment, specifically their HLU-288 loading hoist. We took their equipment, and with the help of SoftWorks out in Tampa, Florida, we modified their loading hoist to interface with our AC-130 bomb racks. See, we would often be asked on the AC-130 to go on missions around the US and around the world. And on many of these missions, we'd be forced to sacrifice our munitions loadout due to the fact that we couldn't get our equipment out there. The cargo transport just wasn't available. This leads to our aircrew missing out on valuable munitions training and aircrew upgrades. Clause was created to solve this logistical issue, which was how do we reload our aircraft in these austere environments and get them back into the fight while also reducing our logistical footprint. See, clause is a necessity when we think about how we're going to dominate in the Indo-PACOM region. The need to reload in austere locations is paramount, and clause provides the solution. Our system not only works flawlessly, it exceeds our expectations when it comes to loading operations. And with clause, we have two key advantages. First, its compact design allows it to be carried internally on many aircraft, ensuring that wherever the aircraft lands, it brings this reloading capability with it. Second, clause is adaptable. We designed clause to interface with all of the aircraft or Air Force airframes in our inventory that utilize wing munitions. And this also includes Navy fighter aircraft. This allows us to pre-stage clause at our different spoke bases and enables clause to allow reload capabilities across multiple combat-coded airframes. Now, if you consider the logistical nightmare of our current loading operations, which require around 9,000 pounds of equipment and 6 pallet positions just for transport, it's not only impractical, but it's also inefficient, especially when we're dealing with airframes tasked with missions over large areas of responsibility. Clause, on the other hand, offers efficiency on a massive scale. It's reducing our load times by an average of 50% while dramatically slashing weight and cargo requirements. This is a necessity for our operations in Indo-PACOM. With clause, we're giving our forces a leg up in the great power competition. As we move to the next slide in our next video, I'd like you guys to take a look and see the drastic changes between our current legacy loading operations and our loading with clause.
Our solution to the challenge statement is clause, the compact loading adapter and winch system. Clause is a system developed by Master Sergeant Khalil Bashir to load external munitions on the wing of the AC-130 in austere environments. In this video, you will see the current method of loading compared to the clause. Our current method of loading requires heavy specialized equipment. For example, the MHU-83 bomb lift truck. It weighs over 7,000 pounds and requires a large team to service and maintain this piece of legacy equipment. The IMPLA, also known as a multi-purpose loading adapter, is a specialized piece of equipment for the AC-130 in order to load on its 13-foot tall pylons. As we shift our focus to peer adversaries, a minimal footprint is critical. Now imagine the footprint our legacy loading operation would leave on a small island chain in the Pacific. Not only do we need to find a way to transport our heavy specialized equipment, we also need to find a way to transport the large amount of support personnel to maintain and fix that legacy equipment. Our current method of loading is suited for a major airfield or a hub base, but as we look towards attempting to rapidly reload at a forward operating location, the logistics become a quick and apparent problem. As the clause team is finishing securing the AGM-114s to the wing, the legacy loading team is making fine movements in order to get the AC-130 arms. These fine movements cost time, whereas our current time standard for 4 AGM-114 missiles is 45 minutes, clause reduces that time to 15 minutes, allowing the AC-130 to land anywhere and be reloaded at any time. And then now
Awesome. So as everyone just seen, and as this video wraps up, clause is paving the way to a new future within loading operations across AC-130s. And we see it to pave the way across the Air Force. Over the past year, our team has worked diligently to take Sergeant Bashir's idea, create this concept, increase visibility, which allowed us to get our prototype so we could test, develop, And so we could stand here today and prove these stats to you. The 9,000 pounds of equipment reduction, seeing load times cut approximately by 50% right now, 6 pallet positions worth of equipment for a C-130 refrag load reduced. So today, we're sitting with an approved 1067 out of AFSOC, which is allowing us to push forward with a launch design and work towards pressing it to make it operational throughout the AC-130s. But the vision is bigger than that. That's where you all come in. We want to keep this concept pressing forward. So the next steps, we need 2 things. One is funding. There's always funding that's needed. And that's for as we press out to the other units, the other squadrons across the Air Force, other platforms, they're going to need funding for launch designs for themselves to see what improvements can be made across 35s, 22s, 16s, 15s. And number 2, we need just the collaboration and support. Collaboration and support from stakeholders, from you all, from the units across the Air Force, to look around and take this concept and take it one step further. Again, we would like to thank you for your time and attention throughout this brief. After all the briefings are done, you'll be able to find us at the Tesseract booth in the main hall for any questions you might have so we can supply any answers. And when you guys do come out to greet us and ask questions, we ask you to remember one thing. We were able to come here today and show you what Claws has done for the C-130, and now it's time to see what Claws can do for you. Thank you.
What an incredible adaptation. Going out in the field, finding something that is successful elsewhere, and making it work for your use case. That's innovation at its best, right? All right, so this next team is coming all at you from across 2 oceans, from USAFE and PACAF, and they met here to tell you about how they're going to keep jets in the fight. Welcome, Project Weapon.
Good morning, LOA attendees. I'm Master Sergeant Anthony Cicchino from ACCA4, F-16 Armament System Manager. With me on stage is Staff Sergeant Ryan Amador, 52nd Fighter Wing Innovation Cell, and Tech Sergeant Matthew Connolly, 51st Fighter Wing Innovation Cell. Additionally on our team is Master Sergeant Randall Stoiner, who's deployed right now, and Mick James, an engineer out of Robbins Air Force Base. A few years ago, the 3 of us were stationed in Spangdahlem together, and that's how this team came together and this project started coming along. What we're here to talk about with you today is enabling cost savings, minimizing footprints, and increasing versatility through functionalities. The Air Force is constantly asking small teams to perform big missions. That's what ACE is all about. We need to keep asking our mission generation force elements to decrease their footprint while increasing their capability. Right now, for armament sections to perform testing on F-16 alternate mission equipment, they require 9 pieces of support equipment, which takes up 2 pallets, 3 tons of weight, and $8,000 to get it shipped out the door. And that's just to run intermediate level testing. This is what that looks like in that armament. When they don't have facility power wherever they're deployed, they need to use all of this to project power, and when those aircraft go up, make sure that those missile launchers and bomb racks are going to work. We were deployed to the UAE after a trip to Sweden, Poland, and recently Japan as well. We saw that there was different facility power everywhere that we went, so we were constantly trying to adapt our capability to ensure that our armament systems were going to be reliable when they needed to be. After having consistent issues everywhere we went and remodifying the support equipment that we had, we decided to come back and think of a new game plan, and that's when we turned to our Air Force Repair Enhancement Program counterparts.
Thank you. So what if I told everyone that we can achieve the same results with less equipment? So much so that our team eliminated 6 pieces of equipment, 1 pallet position, 1 ton of weight, and brought the savings, or reduced to $3K for overall cost. What we see up on the screen now is 3 pieces of equipment. Let me tell everyone a little story. So as an AFRA repair technician, I restored one of the pieces of equipment from the current setup. When we went to go test, we realized that we can go directly to the generator that you see up on the screen. The orange arrow that you see is pointing at an adapter. That's Project Weapon. Project Weapon is an adapter that goes from the generator directly to the weapons tester, providing clean and reliable power. So what does this do for the armament community? They can test anywhere in the world and not have to rely on another country's power. So next steps. We have a 1-page blueprint that we've been creating with our Robbins Air Force Base engineers, and we are about to build prototype number 2, and we will be testing it in the next 3 months. So this is a small package. What's the big impact?
That's a really big question. That's a really good question. And so we're going to talk about big impact, and we're going to do that in the context of the great power competition. But we're going to do this through data. This data that we're about to see comes from the internet, so we know it's reliable. That being said, the actual source for this information is the 2023 Air Force Almanac. Okay? So if we look at the Air Force Almanac, it breaks down the total number of transportation aircraft we have in our Air Force. That number is at 647. Okay, so we have total force transport aircraft, 647. So let's place that into context a little bit. About half of those are cargo transports. And so these are things like our C-130s or C-5 Galaxies, stuff that we can do substantial moves with. Now let's break down those numbers even further. Of those, a majority, 289, have less than 7 pallet spots. Okay, less than seven pallet spots. So now, let's take that context and then put it into the great power competition side of things. So when we take a look at Russia and China, they have almost double the amount of transportation aircraft that we do. So if we take a look at the Indo-PACOM, and then we take a look at the EUCOM, which is the 2 theaters that we primarily work with, what we see is that we have to cover 121 million square miles of space. What that is in kilometers is about 313 million square kilometers. And so what we're looking at is that we are covering a massive amount of space, almost double what our pacing competitors are, and we've got half the aircraft that they do. Very interesting. So what is this telling us? This, my friends, is telling us that capabilities matter and space matters, especially when projecting power. Okay, so let's talk about Project Weapon in the whole context of things and what we need in order to move this forward. Here we are. This is what we get for this simple adapter. What we get is the exact same weapons testing capability that we had before. There is no difference in the output. However, we've slashed the equipment needed by half, a little bit over half as a matter of fact, and then we've cut the weight by 1/3. Additionally, we have returned 1 pallet back to the mission planners, that's many of us here in this room, and this covers nearly half of our Air Force fleet, approximately 43% if we do the math. Okay, so this is the part where we ask for money, you know? But that being said, when we do ask for money, how much do you think something like this would cost? Well, let me tell you, we're actually not asking for money at all. How about that, right? What we're asking for is to help us socialize this, help us advocate for this new way of doing things. To who? To the F-16 community, to the program offices, to the stakeholders that hold meaningful positions in helping us get this to the enterprise. And then also, help us get this to our partner nations as well. The F-16 is the most popular aircraft across all of our partner nations. Okay? So that being said, this is good for our maintainers, this is good for our mission planners, and then this is good for our Air Force. Help us be the change that we want to see. Thank you.
Another incredible innovation. I challenge you in the field, you have these airmen in your units, right? That was a perfect example of an airman that was in an AFREP, saw a problem, and solved it with the tools that he had at hand and reduced both pallet positions and cost to make sure we get jets in the fight. This next project is focused on keeping the lights on. You might have seen some similar projects in the past, but this one takes it a little bit to the next level. So coming from around the Pacific, Project Raise to Jet Power.
Good morning. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody who's attending here today to give us an opportunity to showcase our initiative. But before we jump right into it, I'd like to highlight the members of my team. First of all, we have Senior Master Sergeant Jason Yunker, POL troop by trade, currently deployed in the Middle East. Next, we have Tech Sergeant Manny Rivero, a power production specialist assigned to the 36th Contingency Response Group. We have Major Raymond Hill, PACAF A9A and Innovation Lead, and I am Master Sergeant Jet Nestle, a medic assigned to the 18th Wing Agile Combat Employment Office.
I'm Technical Sergeant Cameron Olson. I'm a vehicle mechanic assigned to the 18th Logistics Readiness Squadron, and we're here to talk about our project, Raise to Jet Power, also known as R2JP. The challenge our team is here to tackle are for opportunities for dual-use support equipment that enables cost savings as well as versatility. There's supposed to be a video.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't showing on our screen. Sorry, apologies. It's a beautiful sunny day with a light island breeze. But it's hard to focus on that because Senior Master Sergeant Jason Yunker is screaming at you. Adversarial missiles are inbound to your location in 30 minutes, and to his credit, Senior Yunker is not screaming in concern for his own life, but to get the aircraft in the air as quickly as possible, because he understands that the loss of those airframes is essentially a surrender. Missile defense systems do a great job mitigating the damage. However, 4 missiles break through, hitting critical targets: the base power supply, the runway, and the fuel munition storage. With the loss of the base power supply goes our communication systems, clean water infrastructure, as well as the medical technology in the medical tents. With the loss of the runway means additional days diverting assets to airdrop supplies and water to our survivors. By the way, there are far less survivors due to the loss of the medical technology in the medical tents. This is a vision we are all currently posturing for, and with aggressors in the Middle East and Europe, like Russia and Hamas, this is the reality just right around the globe. And to further highlight our dual-use challenge, to maintain ACE operations in the Pacific Theater, within a matter of weeks, we would expend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to ensure that our base operations support packages and mission generation has the fuel necessary to maintain operations. How do we take on this challenge?
Our solution, Raise to Jet Power, introduces a modernization of a standard 30 kilowatt generator that replaces diesel with solar energy. It takes up equal pallet space as a traditional generator, but it has none of the fuel logistics tail. It's also easy to set up, with first-time users setting up an R2JP in just 40 minutes. R2JP is also modular and can be condensed down to fit 2 units on a single pallet position. It costs $330,000 and pays for itself within 5 months of use. But the real cost savings is the infrastructure resiliency and the lives we save of our fellow service members and those we serve and protect that Master Sergeant Nestle mentioned earlier. Why are we so confident? It's because we have tested this technology during last year's Northern Edge exercise, in which a prototype powered all the medical operations and support equipment needed to generate clean drinking water. Additionally, in partnership with the Rapid Sustainment Office, we put a prototype to its limits to power an off-grid ACE mission control tower at Klamath Falls, Oregon with the 270th Air Traffic Control Squadron, where even with the heaviest of snowfalls, it powered over 90% of the power requirements needed for that mission control tower. By the way, Throughout these exercises, we saved the Air Force about $1 million in fuel costs. Now, let's hear how this story ends with pre-positioned raised to jet power.
And don't worry, there's no video this time. After the missile strike, our deployed IDMT, the resident medical expert, immediately begins to triage our patients, making his decision based on injuries and usefulness to the fight. Meanwhile, our mission-ready airmen are setting up the raise-to-jet power system, and with the already charged batteries and solar array, power immediately becomes available, which is just in time because the IDMT and his team needs the power relayed to the medical technology and the lighting systems to treat and monitor the patients. R2JP also powers the clean water infrastructure, ensuring that we have clean water to treat the wounds. It also powers the base communication system to ensure that our IDMT is able to utilize the BATDOC system to communicate effectively to providers on the mainland to ensure he is treating those patients. Our IDMT with R2JP was able to single-handedly save multiple lives until AirEvac and the rest of the contingency response group arrive on scene to take medical responsibility, and they're able to recover the run wheel much quicker due to the power relayed from R2JP to their equipment.
Although this crisis is a unique scenario, R2JP provides functionality and adaptability to most units that require ground power or fuel as a source of energy. Examples such as age units, rapid airfield damage repair, or C2. R2JP is your solution.
So where's raised to jet power right now? We've began initial discussions with AMC, ACC, Japanese Air Self-Defense Force, as well as island nations across the Pacific, with AMC and ACC purchasing units of their own. Additionally, we've received $1.8 million from the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the PACAF commander, ensuring that we scale this technology across the Pacific. Being in PACAF, it was important to us to have a readily available technology today.
Our ask is for $680,000 and your support to further scale this technology to stay in line with General Alvin's statement, that we need to have one of these technologies on every island in the Pacific. R2JP helps power air power, keeping our airmen, your airmen, flying,
fighting,
and winning.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had the distinct privilege of working with this technology out in the Pacific before I came to Tesseract, and it's a game changer, right? We used it for a C-17 mission planning cell out there for the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Capability exercise. That's a mouthful. And yeah, like I said, it's a game changer, right? 11 workstations, and we planned about 24 missions in a week using solar technology to power everything, which was unheard of moving into that. So our next project comes to you from the sky, typically located a little above and a little bit ahead of another aircraft. This project's called the KC-135 Patter Crane. Yep.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Nate Mocalis. I go by Mocha. I'm the Director of Innovation at Fairchild Air Force Base. I'm going to talk to you today about the Patter Crane. So KC-135 organic cargo capability. This is the problem statement that we're getting after. And over the last few days, we had an opportunity to listen to some fantastic speakers and our leaders, commanders from AMC and Transcom, and your logistics and readiness leaders. We're talking about that great power competition and what we can do to develop mission-ready airmen that are ready to get out there and kick ass and execute the mission in our pacing threat challenge. Now, while we have fantastic airmen, they're able to innovate and do what is asked of them. The question I'm asking is, are we equipping them with the appropriate tools to get the mission done? So in my former life, I started my career as a C-130 pilot, and there's an old adage in the HERC community that if you give a HERC crew an aircraft and a mission, they're going to figure out a way to get the job done. Now, you might not always want to ask how they got it done, but they'll get it done. Currently, this is my daily ride, so the KC-135. And unlike the C-130, if you are carrying cargo, we do not have a ramp and door to be able to unload and to push things out of in case ATOC is unable to support with a crane or a forklift. So unlike the C-130 or the KC-135, the only two ways to get things in and out of the KC-135 is going to be the crew entry chute, which is about yay big, and then the cargo door, which is about 15 feet off the ground. So if you show up to a location and they don't have a K-loader or something's broken, there's no forklift, how do we get things on and off the aircraft? The KC-135 inherently lacks operational flexibility in loading cargo, and it limits our mission sets, especially in this great power environment. So I want to give you 3 scenarios today to contemplate. First scenario, I'm flying an air and medical evac mission. I've got a non-ambulatory patient in the back. I'm going from Kadena, and when I land at my destination, the vehicle that we rely on to be able to take that patient off that 15-foot altitude, lower them down, and load them up onto the ambulance is broken. So no kidding, I've got a patient in the back that's hot, we're in the middle of summer, and we have no air conditioning on our aircraft, and there's literally no way for me to get them off of the plane right now. Scenario 2, and this happens all the time, whether you're coming back from an exercise from Red Flag or Mobility Guardian, but for me, I was coming back from Bamboo Eagle a couple months ago, and we just led a tanker generation team where we were able to take 9 mission-ready airmen and then minimize our ground turn time by 25% by utilizing Viper kits at this austere location, and to have comm flyway kits to set up HF radios, UHF, VHF, and then secure comms to be able to communicate back with the AOC, and then deliver mission packages out to these aircraft and dynamically refrag them as they're come back out, resupply, and then get back out into a fight. But with this, we had all this equipment, and when we redeploy back to our main operating base with this cargo, we show up, and it's after hours. So if you ever come back to home station and it's after hours or it's on the weekend and ATOC is unable or unwilling to support, how do we get that cargo off the aircraft? Our current method is to break down the pallet on the aircraft and to lower everything down with cargo straps. It's pretty janky. So we're limited by 300 pounds, and that's just by sheer muscle strength. You're going to go over and potentially hurt our airmen with back injuries, and then often dings the aircraft fuselage. Situation number 3. Say that we actually enter into a great power conflict. In this conflict, we're going to have to open up and crack open those O plans, which are going to direct us to distribute munitions, tools, and supplies to various locations throughout the theater, utilizing that hub and spoke method for agile combat employment. How do we do that in the KC-135 when we're going to locations that aren't going to have K-loaders, they aren't going to have forklifts? Our solution is installing an onboard electric-powered cargo crane. Now, this idea was developed by a boom operator in the 509th, and he was doing just that, coming back from a mission and then unloading cargo with cargo straps, and comes back to the squadron bar, and after a few pints, thinking like, hey man, there's gotta be a better way of doing business. So he goes over and takes this napkin sketch drawing, comes to the innovation shop, and we're able to hook him up with the Project Arc engineers. We're able to develop this base plate to attach a commercial off-the-shelf crane with a 1,500-pound lift capability and utilize this base plate that we milled at our fab shop, a local fab shop from the MXG, and then attach that to the 5,000-pound attachment bolts of our KC-135. Over the last year and a half, we've been able to test it and to validate uplifts of 55-gallon drums of fizzy. So that fuel stabilizer icing inhibitor, that's what gets mixed with our fuel to go over and to allow our 5th-gen aircraft to operate at altitude without their fuel freezing. Been able to uplift munitions, 500-pound bombs, AIM-120s, Viper kits, Venom kits, aircraft tires, tool kits, litter patients. We've been able to revolutionize the KC-135 to convert it into a one-stop shop to be able to deliver fuel, munitions, and cargo to the various island chains or other locations in austere environments that are going to be asked for us in a distributed environment. We've been able to minimize timing with cargo loading by 50% utilizing this method. Currently, we have one working prototype, a 1067 validated by the AMC CRB process, and recently, Indo-PACOM just wrote into their ConOps that the KC-135 has a requirement to be able to organically onload and offload cargo in order to meet our pacing threat challenges. The way forward. So we stood up a working group with AMC's A staff. We're working with the SPOs. We're developing the test and evaluation requirements in order to get this cargo crane airworthiness approval. Long term, we want to go over and develop a version 2 prototype. And this prototype, we're getting some engineers, and they're going to essentially create a brand new crane from the floor up that has an integrated base plate, custom fitted for our aircraft, and it's able to develop a max lift capability based on those 5,000-pound attachment bolts. Now, our ask is influence for all of you here in Logi Nation. The KC-135 has 6 beautiful pallet positions worth of cargo that's able to transport. And if we're going and we're looking at a great power competition, we all know that every pallet position is going to be gold in order to be able to get our cargo, munitions, and tools where they need to be. The second ask is for the front row, the constellation of the stars in the room. And I'm not sure what the appropriate protocol is, if I need to go over and pass out paddles for a paddle raise, or we're going to go over and pass a plate around, but I'm asking for $450,000. So $450,000, and that's going to go over and get us that version 2 prototype. In the next 4 to 6 months, we're already working with some folks that are engineering this, and this is the remaining cost in order to get this. Once we have that, we're going to be able, with one GPC card swipe, wing commanders are able to go over and procure this with an NSN stock number, $450K. So in closing, AMC, Transcom, and all of Logi Nations readies itself to become the most relied upon force in the history of warfare. It's airman innovations like this that are going to propel us through this era of great power competition. Thank you.
All right, so that's the 4 teams that we have for you today. Pretty incredible stuff, in my opinion. What I want to talk to you about now is kind of a little bit about what we do here at Tesseract, and then how you can join the fight. So at Tesseract, we're a team of about 20 active duty personnel located at Headquarters Air Force, A4L. We are charged with connecting, empowering, and accelerating airman innovation, right? And so airmen out in the field, like the ones you saw that are trying to solve problems, it is our job, and a lot of us say our calling, to get these airmen to the finish line, right? There's a lot of bureaucracy in the way. Sorry to say that out loud. And then there's a lot of unknowns in the way, right? It's not an airman's job to know, how do I get this problem I'm trying to solve up to a sustainment organization at AFMC. That's not their job. And so that's where we try to fill in the gaps. If you want to join, please scan the QR code. This will bring you to what we call our link tree, and you can join our L&O community. And so it's a Slack channel of about 1,200 airmen, and there's constant conversation in there about innovation. How do we solve problems? Who's solving what problems, so we're not doing duplicative efforts? And everybody can get on the same page and get excited about innovation and get our force to where it needs to be ready to fight a future fight. Awesome. Well, now I'd like to welcome Major General King and the Aether Sprint teams back to the stage for the presentation of their decorations. Attention to orders. This is to certify that the Air and Space Achievement Medal has been awarded for outstanding achievement from 10 August 2023 to 28 March 2024. They distinguished themselves as an Air Force Logistics Enterprise Innovator during the 2024 Aether Sprint competition. They assembled a team that answered the Headquarters Air Force's call to enhance logistics capabilities crucial for agile combat support and mission generation against pacing adversaries. Their team ascended to the top of the field of 36 teams, where their solution was vectored to be scaled and implemented across the enterprise. Finally, they recognized that the culture of innovation is key to the Air Force's success in a great power competition, and their ideas serve as a testament to the power of this mindset. By delivering airman-led solutions, they not only demonstrated a commitment to advancing innovation into sustainment activities, but also bolstered United States Air Force and Department of Defense warfighting logistics. Their distinctive accomplishments reflect credit upon themselves and the United States Air Force. All right, so this concludes our Aether Sprint presentation for 2024. We'd like to invite you all, maybe one at a time, to booth 212 to ask the teams any questions you might have about getting these innovations to your units. Thank you.